Hello everyone. Today we will be studying the important concepts of nationalism in India. So let us first know about the idea of nationalism. Nationalism can be defined as an ideology that is focused on the idea of devotion towards one nation. It is the people's understanding of who they are and what their ideas of belonging are. So, जब इंडिया में ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट had imposed various kinds of restrictions on the Indian people, the Indian people developed a collective thought of gaining independence for their nation. People from all the socio-economic backgrounds came together to fight the oppressions by the British government. People started to collectively relate themselves through the common struggles which were faced by them. Now let us discuss the idea of Satyagraha. So, in 1916, Gandhiji returned to India and suggested the idea of satyagrahi in order to win the independence from the Britishers. He believed that you don't need to fight the oppression by any violent means if you have the power of truth. He always believed in the concept of passive resistance. Without seeking vengeance or being aggressive, a satyagrahi could win the battle through the process of non-violence, and this could be done by appealing to the conscience of the oppressor. Mahatma Gandhi believed that this dharma of non-violence could unite all the Indians. Now let us come to the Rowlatt Act. So in 1919, the British government had passed the Rowlatt Act, which gave the power to the government to arrest the people without trial. This act had been hurriedly passed through the Imperial Legislative Council despite the united opposition of the Indian members. Gandhiji decided to launch a nationwide satyagraha program against the proposed Rowlatt Act. He believed that non-violent disobedience against such unjust laws would need to be stopped, and he decided to launch hartals and civil movements on 6th April. So rallies were organized in various cities, workers went on strike in railways workshops, and shops closed down. So something similar happened in Amritsar as well. In Amritsar, a crowd of villagers had come to attend a Baisakhi fair and had gathered in the Jalianwala Bagh. So being from outside the city, many of them were not aware of the martial law that had been imposed as a repressive measure. And without giving any prior warning, General Dyer opened fire on these unarmed people. And this created a lot of chaos in the nationwide minds of the people. This incident is known as Jalyawala Bagh incident, and it took place on 13th April 1990. Let us now discuss the economic situation that happened after World War One. So, Manchester imports into India declined as the British mills were busy with war production to meet the needs of the army, which paved the way for the Indian mills to supply for the huge home market. And as the war prolonged, Indian factories were called upon to supply the war needs. As a result, new factories were set up, new workers were employed, and everyone was made to work for longer hour durations. Cotton production had obviously collapsed, and export of cotton cloth from Britain fell dramatically after the war, as it was unable to modernize and compete with the kind of goods available in US, Germany, and Japan. Hence, with colonies like India, local industrialists gradually consolidated their position, capturing the home market. Now let us discuss the non-cooperation movement. It was adopted at Nagpur in December 1920. Mahatma Gandhi was the main force behind the non-cooperation movement. In 1920, he issued a manifesto declaring a doctrine of the non-violent non-cooperation movement. Gandhiji, through this manifesto, wanted the people to follow these three things: adopt Swadeshi principles, adopt Swadeshi habits, including hand spinning and weaving, working for the eradication of untouchability from the society. Let us also discuss the features of non cooperation movement. The movement was essentially a peaceful and a non violent protest against the British government of India. Indians were asked to relinquish their titles and resign from the nominated seats in the local bodies as a mark of protest. People were asked to resign from their government jobs. They were asked to withdraw their children from the government controlled or aided schools or colleges. They were also asked to boycott foreign goods and the use and to promote the use of only Indian made goods. They were asked to boycott the elections to the legislative councils, and they were also asked to not serve in the British Army. Let us also discuss the Chauri Chaura incident now. In 1922, Gandhiji decided to launch a no tax movement. The people opened fire at the people who were taking part in a demonstration without any provocation. The people turned violent in their anger and attacked the police station and set fire to it. The incident took place at Chauri Chaura in Uttar Pradesh. When Gandhiji came to know about this incident, he decided to call off the non-cooperation movement as he felt that it was turning violent and that the satyagrahis were not properly trained for the mass struggle, and thus he called off the non-cooperation movement. And then he came up with a broader movement, which is known as the Civil Disobedience Movement. It was a landmark event in the Indian nationalist movement. The civil disobedience movement commenced with the infamous Dandi March, when Gandhiji left the Sabarmati ashram at Ahmedabad on foot with 78 followers of his from the ashram for Dandi on 12 March 1930. After reaching Dandi, Gandhi broke the salt law. It was considered illegal to make salt, as it was solely a government monopoly. The salt satyagraha led to a widespread acceptance of the civil disobedience movement across the country. This event became symbolic of people's defiance of the government policies. People were now asked not to only refuse the cooperation with the British, but to also break the colonial laws. Foreign cloth was boycotted, and people were asked to picket liquor shops. Peasants were asked not to pay revenue and chowkidari taxes. Students, lawyers, and village officials were asked not to attend English medium schools, colleges, courts, and offices. But let us also discuss the limitations of civil disobedience movement. So, not all social groups were moved by the abstract concept of Swaraj. One such group was the nation's untouchables, who from around the 1930s had begun to call themselves Dalit or the oppressed. But Gandhiji called them as Harijans and believed that they were equally a part of the society and that no discrimination needs to be done against them. Less participation by the untouchables, Ambedkar for separate electorate and Pune Pact of 1932, lukewarm response by some of the Muslim political party organizations were also the limitations of civil disobedience movement. In the 20th century, the identity of nation came to be recognized in the form of figures or images. For example, the first image of Bharat Mata was created by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. In 1870s, he wrote Vande Mataram as a hymn dedicated to the motherland. Under the leadership of Gandhiji and the Indian National Congress, the people's grievances came to be channeled in organized movements for the independence. So, these were the major concepts of the chapter of nationalism in India. Thank you.